Welcome in, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into Pierre Côté and his company RTA, Radical Transparency.
They're really changing how brands and governments and even public figures are using AI to communicate.
It's interesting, right? Like, we're going to look at how he got here. This guy's been in the game for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that just blew me away was, like, back in 1994, he created Canada's very first internet marketing agency. Like, 94. Think about that.
I mean, that was the internet dark ages.
Yeah, really. I mean, most people were still trying to figure out email.
Totally. I mean, and he was already out there advising like major companies like Cirque du Soleil, helping them get a foothold, in this brand new digital world.
That's pretty visionary, if you ask me, like way ahead of the curve.
Totally.
It's interesting, though, because his thing has always seemed to be about this, like, really impactful communication. Like, he's not just chasing trends, right?
Right.
It's about using technology to actually make a difference.
Totally. The right message, the right people. It's about getting it out there strategically.
Oh, yeah. And he's not afraid to, like, jump into some pretty tough situations. Did you read about his work during the 2010 Haiti earthquake?
Yeah. I mean, that was really incredible.
He was like right there in the thick of it, providing live coverage of the disaster and not just like reporting on it, but like using his platform to coordinate relief efforts, getting water to people, stuff like that.
Thousands of liters of water. I mean, really impactful work. And, I think that really showcased his deep understanding of just, how powerful real-time media can be, right?
Yeah.
Connecting people, mobilizing resources, like especially during a crisis. I mean, nobody was really doing that at that scale back then.
No, and he becomes like a special advisor to the Prime Minister of Haiti. Like, how crazy is that?
I mean, that's got to be a story in itself.
Yeah. And he was their social media director. So what did he actually do in that role?
Well, he basically revolutionized how the government communicated, both with its citizens and the diaspora. It was all about transparency, using video, iPads, iPhones, just to create a more direct and open dialogue, really breaking down those traditional barriers.
So, I mean, it seems like RTA, right, and this focus on AI-powered influence, it's kind of like a natural next step for him.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about cutting through the noise.
So how does that work?
Well, they're using AI, right, to analyze huge amounts of data, everything from social media, to news cycles. They're looking for trends, trying to identify those emerging narratives, and then they help their clients shape their communication strategies in real time. It's pretty amazing.
Okay, so are they kind of like a super high-tech PR firm, but with AI as their secret weapon?
Well, it's a bit more nuanced than that, I'd say.
Okay.
They're not just spinning stories or trying to, manipulate people. It's about authenticity. It's about helping their clients communicate in a way that builds trust.
Okay, so how does AI play into that? Can you give us an example?
Sure. Imagine a company, right, that's suddenly facing a PR crisis. RTA's AI can be monitoring like everything, right? All the social media, the news, everything. They're figuring out what are the key issues, how are people feeling, who's driving the conversation.
Okay, so they can get ahead of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then they can advise the company, right, on how to respond, how to address concerns, but in a way that's really transparent, builds credibility.
So it's not just about reacting. It's about, like, anticipating problems, being prepared.
Exactly. Proactive narrative control. That's what they call it.
Okay, now let's talk about Dr. Ellis, this AI therapist designed for men. How did this even come about?
Well, Pierre's had his own struggles, with mental health and addiction, and he saw this need for a solution that was, like, always available, affordable,
Okay.
especially for guys, right, who might not be comfortable going to traditional therapy.
Yeah, so, I mean, this kind of fits with this whole idea of using technology to solve real-world problems, right? But how does Dr. Ellis actually work? Is it just some chatbot giving out generic advice?
Oh, no. It's way more sophisticated than that. It uses evidence-based therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavior therapy.
Okay, and how does that actually, like, play out?
It's designed to have like real conversations with users, understand their specific needs, and then help them develop, healthy coping mechanisms.
So it's actually learning as it goes.
Exactly. It's constantly evolving. The more people use it, the more data it gathers, the better it gets.
Wow. Okay, so, I mean, we've covered a lot here. Early internet marketing, crisis communications, AI therapy. Is there like a common thread that runs through all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. Pierre is all about using technology to create positive change.
Oh,
Whether it's helping brands communicate or governments become more transparent or even individuals get that mental health support they need, it's all about making a real difference in people's lives.
okay. So we got a good sense of Pierre's journey and RTA's approach, this whole radical transparency thing. But I want to dig deeper into their AI services. Like, how are different clients actually using this stuff?
Let's get into it. So you mentioned RTA's AI services. You know, one that I think is super interesting is their transmedia monitoring.
Transmedia monitoring. Okay.
Yeah.
Break that down for me.
Basically, they're like constantly scanning, the whole digital landscape, social media, news websites, online forums, basically anything and everything that's out there publicly. They're using AI to do it.
Okay, so it's like a finger on the pulse of the internet, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And what they're looking for are trends, patterns, anything that might be, relevant to their clients. It's all about I guess you could say, identifying potential crises before they happen, seeing opportunities to engage, really understanding how people are feeling about things.
Okay, and how does AI help with all that?
Well, their algorithms can analyze language, sentiment, even, visual content, images and videos, and they can pull out these key themes, track how conversations are evolving, even figure out like who the most influential voices are in any given, conversation.
So it's not just about like collecting data. It's about like actually understanding it.
Exactly. I mean, it gives them this level of like insight that would be honestly impossible for humans to achieve on their own, right? It's like having this team of like super analysts working around the clock, just crunching all this data, trying to make sense of the world.
Okay, so we've talked about how RTA uses AI to like monitor, analyze.
Mm-hmm.
What about actually like shaping narratives? How do they help their clients actually like influence what people think?
So, well, one thing they do is like they'll help craft the message, figure out how to deliver it,
All right.
and they'll use AI to figure out, like what are the best channels for reaching certain audiences? Who are the influencers? What platforms should we be using?
So it's all about like being really strategic,
Mm-hmm.
targeted, not just like blasting out a message to everyone.
Exactly. They can like really drill down into, demographics, online behavior, psychographics, figure out how to actually connect with those specific people you want to reach.
It's like a tailor-made strategy, right? For each audience.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll also use AI to actually help create content, like engaging content.
Right.
So they can analyze like past campaigns, figure out what worked, what didn't. They can even like generate ideas based on, whatever's trending at the moment, what people are interested in.
That's like the data-driven storytelling.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. They're helping their clients become better storytellers.
Okay, I got to ask though, with all this talk of like narrative control,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard not to think about, the potential for misuse, right?
Absolutely.
Like, could this technology be used to like, manipulate people, spread misinformation?
I mean, it's a valid concern for sure. And I think RTA is aware of that. Their whole philosophy is built around this like radical transparency.
Right.
So, that suggests to me that they're committed to using this stuff, ethically and responsibly.
Okay, so how do they actually like ensure that? Is there like oversight, regulations on how this stuff can be used?
That's a tough one. AI ethics is like this whole evolving field. Nobody really has all the answers yet. I mean, RTA emphasizes like human oversight, right? They want to be transparent about their process. But in the end, I think it comes down to each client, using these tools responsibly.
So it's a powerful tool, but it's one that requires, like a lot of careful consideration.
Yeah.
Ethical decision making.
Yeah, for sure. Like any technology, right? It can be used for good or for bad. It's up to us to make sure that it's, actually benefiting humanity.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit here and talk more about Dr. Ellis. You mentioned earlier that it incorporates evidence-based therapies.
Yeah.
Like, can you tell us more about that? What are we talking about here?
So, Dr. Ellis is designed to like personalize the support it provides, right? And it does that by drawing on a bunch of different therapeutic approaches: cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, even elements of psychodynamic therapy. And it delivers these therapies through like interactive conversations, guides users through exercises, helps them, identify negative thought patterns, develop coping mechanisms.
Okay, so can you give us, like, an example? How would this actually play out? Like, let's say someone's struggling with anxiety.
Okay, so say you're dealing with anxiety. Dr. Ellis might, take you through a CBT exercise, right? Help you figure out what are those negative thought patterns, challenge those thoughts. It might teach you like relaxation techniques, right? Deep breathing, mindfulness, meditation. It could even help you come up with like a personalized action plan for, managing your anxiety in different situations.
So it's not just like, here's some information, good luck, right? It's like actually helping you work through stuff.
Yeah. It's like having like a therapist in your pocket available whenever you need them.
But can AI really replace like human connection? Empathy, isn't that a big part of therapy?
It's a good question. I mean, Dr. Ellis isn't meant to replace human therapists altogether, but, it can be like a bridge, especially for people who, might be hesitant to go to traditional therapy, or people who, live in areas where there just aren't a lot of mental health services available.
So it's about access, right? Meeting people where they are.
Exactly. And, for a lot of men, the fact that it's, anonymous, accessible, that might be more appealing than, sitting down on a couch and talking to someone face to face.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about how RTA uses AI to, analyze trends, shape narratives, provide mental health support. It seems like they're really like pushing the boundaries here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this whole radical transparency thing, it's fascinating, right? Like Pierre's not just building a company. He's like starting a movement. Yeah. He wants us to rethink how we communicate, how we connect, especially in this like crazy digital age.
Okay, so we've gone deep on like RTA's services, how they're using AI to actually make an impact. I'm curious, what is their call to action? What do they want people to do after listening to all of this?
Let's get into that.
So we've seen all these ways RTA is using AI, changing how we communicate. What's the takeaway? What do they want us to like walk away with?
They want radical transparency. That's the future they see, and not just an idea, like the standard.
Okay.
And they want brands, governments, public figures, everyone to get on board, embrace this new way of doing things.
And they're the ones to help make that happen.
Oh, yeah. They're offering their AI solutions, their expertise.
And they're not just talking the talk. I mean, they're working with some pretty big clients.
Oh, yeah. Major corporations, governments, even celebrities. They're doing it, showing how it works.
Putting it into action.
Yeah.
And they're not limited to just one place.
Nope. Haiti, the U.S., Canada, Europe, they're all over.
Okay, so like if you're a leader trying to figure out this whole digital world, build trust, get your message out there the right way.
They're basically saying, let's talk.
Let's talk.
Yeah. They want to partner with anyone who's ready to embrace this whole radical transparency thing. Use AI to communicate better, more authentically, make a real impact.
That's a pretty strong message. Before we wrap up, though, I want to go back to something you said earlier about how AI can be used, for good or for bad.
Yeah, that's important, especially as we're, going deeper and deeper into this AI world.
Right. I mean, we've talked about, how RTA is using it to help people, like with Dr. Ellis tackling the men's mental health crisis. But what about the potential downsides? We can't ignore those.
We can't. We have to think about the ethics, make sure these tools are being used responsibly.
This whole deep dive, it's been eye-opening, to say the least. Yeah. It's pretty clear AI is changing how we communicate. And we're just scratching the surface.
And Pierre, he's right out there on the front lines, pushing those boundaries, making us think differently about how we connect, how we interact with each other.
So as we move forward, it's on us to keep asking the tough questions, talking about this stuff, figuring out what role AI is going to play in our lives.
Absolutely. Pierre's story, what RTA is doing, it's a reminder. Technology, it's a tool, and we get to decide how we use it, what kind of future we build.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of AI-powered influence. Hope you found it interesting, maybe even a little bit challenging.
Yeah. Stay curious, folks. This digital world, it's always changing.